Utility, the single most important piece of equipment in PUBG. It can turn the tide of any fight or save your team from some of the worst situations possible. I've briefly talked about utility and their benefits in previous videos, but never fully in depth. So in this video, we'll be going over every piece of throwable utility, discussing their various methods of use and how to use them properly. The only utility I won't be going over is the deployable cover, because let's be honest, it's the most self-explanatory piece of equipment and is pretty one note. Plus, I'm still pretty salty about how many times I've died being squashed by one of these things. Which wouldn't have happened if I was using the Hero 68 Hall Effect keyboard from Aula Gaming. The Aula Hero 68 is a stunning keyboard that comes equipped with full RGB lighting, this beautiful customizable neon light box, and a sturdy compact design that's built to last. The Hero 68's magnetic switches offer lightning fast response time, making it ideal for any FPS game, and it allows you to customize each trigger's release point through their easy to use custom WebDriver. Paired with the Hero 68's 8000 Hz polling rate, 128 kHz key scanning rate, and 0.125 millisecond ultra low latency, your peaks in PUBG will be faster and more efficient, all while maintaining that infamous keyboard ASMR. If you want to snag one of these for yourself, check the pinned comment down below with the link to Aula Gaming's website. First, let's touch on some general principles when throwing any piece of utility, such as how the crosshair works, or doesn't, and how your character's movement plays a role when throwing utility. The crosshair only indicates if your character is positioned to throw overhand or underhand, which you can change by right-clicking. It's not actually meant to be used for aiming when throwing. Then there's the aiming line, which is pretty much useless past 10 to 15 meters and really only shows the trajectory of any throwable relative to your character's movement. Move forward, the arc drops lower but extends further. Move backward, and the arc gets taller but shorter. This next one's more for beginner players, not necessarily experienced players, but let's touch on some simple movement facts that every player should know. When standing and not moving, aiming at a 45-degree angle, your character's max throwing distance is roughly 55 to 60 meters. Moving forward while throwing adds momentum to any throw, extending that distance by roughly 10 to 15 meters. This takes your character's base throwing distance of 55 to 60 meters and bumps it up to roughly 75-80-ish. Jumping raises the arc of any throw. When paired with moving forward while throwing, it greatly increases your throwing distance. Jumping while throwing can extend your character's throwing distance and reaching around 85 meters, easy. Just make sure that when you're throwing any piece of utility while jumping, you have to press left click before jumping, not while jumping. Your character needs to be in the throwing animation as you're pressing space and lifting your character up in order to maximize how far you throw that thing. Now, I've only recently started doing this, and let me tell you, it has made me way more efficient at using utility. And that's assigning every throwable to its own keybind. No more opening up tab and manually having to click what you want to throw or using the utility wheel, just press the key and throw. I currently have grenades bound to G, which is a pretty common keybind for every other modern shooter, so this one actually felt very natural. And since G is the default keybind for the throwable wheel, I actually moved the throwable wheel's keybind over to B, so it's not too far out of reach. Smoke grenades are bound to my 4 key. Since smoke grenades are crucial and should be easy to deploy, setting it to a key right above my reload and lean keys was the most optimal. Since I tend to carry at least one stun grenade at all times, I have it set to my 5 key. Since BZ nades are pretty heavy, I am a little more selective on using them, so I have it set to my 6 key. And for Molotovs and deployable cover, I do use the throwable wheel for those, since I tend to not carry them as often. These are what work most comfortable for me, but by all means, pick whatever feels the best for you, and trust me, when you assign each piece of utility to its own keybind, you will see a huge difference. Trust me on this. It should be common knowledge by now, but if you're not carrying at least 2 to 4 smoke grenades at all times, you're putting yourself at a serious disadvantage. Smoke grenades are easily the most important piece of utility in PUBG and can be used in several different ways. The most obvious use for smoke grenades is to block visibility and create cover. If you have a teammate that's been knocked and is in a vulnerable position, before reviving them, make sure to throw 1 to 2 smokes on them to block the line of sight from any other team that might be trying to go for an easy flush. But also, depending on the situation, this can also be a bad idea as well, because smoking a down teammate can be a magnet for any opposing team. Smarter players will start to push, anticipating that you are reviving, and easily throw grenades into the smoke to get another knock and potentially flush the already down player. Also, considering that smoke grenades do create a considerable amount of noise, you could be potentially blocking any audio cues like footsteps that your team could be using to anticipate a push. Smokes are also vital when pushing into zone when you have little to no cover. If you're in a tight position, creating a smoke wall is a great way to cut off visibility to enemy players and give your team those couple extra seconds to make a decision on what to do next. If you're attempting a smoke wall to push into a new safe position, it's as easy as tossing a couple of smokes, give them a couple seconds to bloom, then move. If you're getting shot at through the smoke wall, try not to move at one steady pace. Instead, stop for a short second in between smoke plumes, throwing off your attacker's prediction and timing. Smokes can also be a great way to bait or feint enemy players as well. If you're approaching a team or player's position and you want to divert their attention away from you, toss a smoke grenade in a completely different direction, attempting to get their eyes fixed on the smoke and not you. This will allow you to easily rotate without them knowing and might even get them to peek. There have been countless times where I've actually thrown a smoke as a bait or a feint, and the opposing players will start throwing grenades into it. Meanwhile, I've been rotating on them and they have no idea where I'm at, giving me the advantage. The smoke launcher, which is arguably the best equipable third slot item and can really save you in a pinch. The only downside being is that it requires the projectile to launch roughly about 10 to 15 meters to activate, and 5 to 7 seconds when you launch it directly into the ground. Have a knocked teammate, aim and shoot the smoke launcher directly at their position to deploy an instant smoke wall. Getting shot at? Shoot the smoke launcher at a nearby tree in the direction of the shooter to provide instant cover, cutting off line of sight to your attacker. Attempting to make a push into a compound and want to blind any players that might peek from the building, shoot the smoke launcher at any door or window to prevent them from peeking. Pushing a hill where you know players are up top and want to cut off their line of sight, shoot the launcher at the crest of the hill. This forces them to peek from only one of two sides. There are so many use case scenarios where the smoke launcher can come in clutch. It's incredibly flexible and allows for so many different creative uses, making it easily one of the best pieces of utility in the game. Blue zone grenades are a cool piece of utility, although they have a very limited number of uses, but they're incredibly effective at forcing teams to move, despite them being one of the heavier throwables. The best use for a BZ nade is right after you've knocked somebody in a building, toss a BZ nade in that window or room where the knock is. There's nothing worse than when you're attempting to revive a teammate and you see a BZ nade starting to expand. The amount of panic that they cause due to how much damage they do is incredibly effective. Blue zone grenades are really good at flushing enemies out of buildings, or at minimum making them weaker, which makes the push easier for you and your team. Another very effective use when one BZ grenade is not enough, throw two in at the same time. Double BZs mean double the damage. Molotovs are a very straightforward piece of util and can also be very terrifying when used correctly. A couple of uses for Molotovs are delaying an enemy team's push. If you are in the second or third floor of a building and getting pushed by a team or a player, throwing a molly on the stairs can be a great way to delay that push. Not only does this stop any forward momentum from any other player's push, it could deter it altogether since they know you've had ample time to reset. Molotovs are also great for disabling enemy players, because when you're on fire from a Molotov, you lose the ability to ADS completely, which is easily one of the most frustrating ways to die in this game. Grenades are an absolute force to be reckoned with in PUBG. With a decent AoE range and super high damage, grenades are a must-have in your backpack at all times. As discussed in the smoke grenade section of this video, grenades are the ultimate counter to smokes. If you or a teammate have gotten a knock and the other team starts smoking them out to go for a revive, tossing a couple of grenades into the smoke will almost guarantee the flush and potentially get you another knock. Grenades aren't just used as lethals either, since every player within a 5 to 10 meter range of a grenade explosion has their in-game audio muffled. The closer the grenade, the longer the tinnitus effect lasts, which can be used to your advantage when pushing a team. Lobbing a couple of grenades into a building or in any player's general direction will restrict any sound cues that they could use against you. While PUBG does give you a meter when cooking grenades, they never really explain how it works in a meaningful way. So here's my own perspective on how I use it. For me, the only 2 points on the cooking meter that matter are the second and third notch. A grenade cooked to the 3rd notch will explode once it reaches just beyond the end of the aiming line and should really only be used in close quarter situations. Cooking a grenade to the 3rd notch is perfect when you have to throw a nade over a small hill, into a window, and you want that grenade to blow up mid-air, giving the other player no time to react. The 2nd notch is ideal when you're in a mid-range engagement, up to around 20 to 25 meters. Like when a player is hiding behind a rock, or you're tossing a grenade into a shack and want to time the explosion just right. Stuns are one of the weirdest pieces of utility in PUBG. So after getting fed up with blinding myself when I thought I was in the clear over and over and over, I decided to test them out. So I launched into a custom match with my buddy dweebh, spawning only level 3 backpacks and stuns. Then we went to work blinding ourselves for about 30 minutes. And we actually were able to determine some of the logic behind stuns. One being every character has almost like a 360-degree sphere around them. Imagine a bubble, if you would, that is roughly 7 to 10 meters in diameter. Any stun thrown in this invisible bubble will blind you regardless if your character is visually staring at it. To avoid being blinded by a stun, your character's model has to be turned in a way where the stun's explosion lines up exactly with your back. Not to the side, not looking up or down, but exactly lined up with your back. When tossing a stun around a corner or over a wall, the flash or spark effect is what causes the blinding effect. This spark or flash effect is completely random, and sometimes it could be taller or wider, which is why you get blinded when throwing a stun around a corner or on top of a hill sometimes, because it's completely random. Here are some side-by-side comparisons so you can see what the bloom of this spark effect looks like. If any piece of this spark or flash effect is within your character's view, you will be blinded regardless. Kind of like grenades, stuns aren't just used for their intended purpose of blinding someone, but they're also amazing at disabling another player's audio. You don't need to throw them directly on top of a player, but as long as they land within that bubble that we previously talked about, at most it will blind them. At minimum, at least they won't be able to hear you when you're running up on them. And that's going to do it for this video, guys. Hopefully you found it helpful. I know I was kind of all over the place, but yeah, it was a fun video to make. You know, anytime I get to sit and just test stuff like this, it's I don't know, I learned a little bit along the way too. If you found it useful, please feel free to, like it, subscribe. Love to have you back next time. And yeah, man, come check out the live streams on the weekends. Always having a good time over there. Don't forget to also use my creator code dweebh, and also check out the membership page, which will be linked in the description of the video. Much appreciated for the support as always, and I will see you guys on the next one. Stay safe. I'll see you around.